So let's recite this together 3 times. Not responsibly but together. It's a simple words. Asatyam pratishthante jagatahurishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kamahaitukam asatyam pratishthante jagatahurishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kamahaitukam asatyam pratishthante jagatahurishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kamahaitukam Om Jnanvidandasya Jnananjalishalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadeshkarine Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Vivasindhukarevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Dear Lord, please guide us all as we try to make sense of the world through the eyes that you provide us through your words. Hare Krishna. So today we are going to discuss about the topic of the divine and the demoniac natures. And this is the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In this particular chapter, Krishna starts by describing the divine nature in a few verses. But after that, he spends a lot of time describing the demoniac nature. And this particular verse is describing the worldview of the demoniac people. Now, in one sense, like I mentioned earlier, that in any scripture, there is a combination of the timeless and the timely, or the, we could say, the universal and the contextual. So when Krishna is speaking over here, he is in many ways speaking at the universal level. He says, this is the kind of mentality these people have, the kind of actions that they do. But sometimes when such words are spoken, have any of you heard of this term called plausible deniability? It's a legal term. Plausible deniability. So deniability means that you can deny, that's not what I spoke. And it's plausible, it's reasonable. Like say, sometimes you want to criticize someone, but there are laws against libel. Libel means you criticize someone and you can be sued in court. So you criticize someone, but you don't mention their name at all. However, you describe it in such a way that everybody knows who is being talked about. Isn't it? So, at that time, it's talking in abstract or universal principles. Now, some people think like this, some people speak like this, some people do like this. And everybody knows who those some people are. But there is no name mentioned over there. So, there is, in that way, it is not that explicit, but it's very clear who is being talked about. So actually this whole section of the demoniac nature, at that Kurukshetra level, it is referring to Duryodhana. And we'll see some of the later verses where he says that Idam adhyamaya labdham imam prapse manoratham. By my schemes I got this much wealth and I'll get this much more wealth. I got half of the Pandavas' kingdom, now I'll get the full kingdom. So I got them to get the barren wasteland, and now I will drive them over there also. Oh, they got a bigger kingdom, I will seize their kingdom by gambling rich. So he's making manoratham. And then when he gets wealth, what does he do after that? He forms his own coterie of people, his own group of people. And he says, Karana is so powerful, Shastra is so powerful, they are all my people. Adno Abhijanvanasmi. Konyos Satrusho Maya. Who is there like me? And then he says, okay, the Pandavas, they did a yajna. So they became famous because of yajna. I also want to do yajna. Now the Pandavas' purpose was to glorify Krishna. So they had some sacred purpose. His purpose is not sacred, it is very superficial, just show off. So, like sometimes the Durga Puja happens. Now there are some people who will be interested in Durga goddess, but some people do it just to flaunt their wealth and their position and their piety. So, similarly, he says, I want to perform the Rajasuya Yajna. And then the Brahmanas say that actually the Rajasuya Yajna cannot be performed by any king if the previous king is still alive. The previous king will perform the Rajasuya Yajna because the Rajasuya Yajna is basically performed by someone who is like the world emperor. So then he says, but I want to perform it. He says, okay, there's another yajna. So that you can perform, and when you perform that, it is as good as the Rajasuya Yajna. It's very rarely performed. He says, what is the yajna? Vaishnava Yajna. Now he has no interest in Vishnu, but he performs the Vaishnava Yajna. And Karana goes on his behalf and challenges everyone, and Karana wins for him. Most people don't want to fight with him also, they know this is not going to last for very long. He's not going to be a permanent emperor. So they don't antagonize him, but he performs the yajna. But he has no interest in actually the purpose of yajna. And after the yajna, he's still very upset. He said that I did not get as good gifts as Yudhishthira got. But I was there receiving the gifts on behalf of Yudhishthira. So he's never satisfied. Kama ashritya dushpuram. His karma is never satisfied. So yajante nama yajnaiste. He says, his idea is yakshe dasyami modishya ityajnana vibodha. And I will do the yajna for what purpose? For the purpose of showing off to the world what a pious purpose I am. Yakshe dasyami. I will give charity. But modishya, in this way I will enjoy. So it is not just they want to enjoy the pleasure of being powerful, but they also want the pleasure of being seen as pious, being seen as good people. So they try to buy that. That's why many wealthy people, they start giving charity after they get a particular level of wealth. Now, it could be that some of them really want to make a difference in society. Some of them just want to be seen as good people. It depends. So when Krishna is describing the demoniac nature over here, he does not even devote even one verse for any physical characteristics. Not that demons are people who have horns over their head and they have their teeth coming out of their mouth. No, he does not describe that at all. See, there is a difference between Asura and Rakshasa. So Asura is a mentality. Rakshasa is a species. So now we could say that it's like this, that Rakshasas are primarily Asuras. But there could be people who are born in a Rakshasa dynasty, but they are not Asuras. Who is the example of this? Prahlad. Technically Prahlad was in another dynasty. He was called as not Rakshasa but Daitya. Daityanam Prahladaschasmi. So example of somebody in the Rakshasa dynasty? Vibhishan. So now there could be even Manavas included in this. Manav is what? Humans. So humans can also have a demoniac nature. If you see the war in the Mahabharata and the war of the Ramayana, there is a significant difference between the two wars, in the sense that the war in the Ramayana was actually between Manavas and Rakshasas. So there are two different species. But in the Mahabharata, what happens? Both sides are Manavas. Both sides are humans. And both sides have Rakshasas on their side. Who is the Rakshasa on the side of the Pandavas? Dakuraj. Yes, he is born of Bhima and Hidimbi. So, and there is a demon named Alambush, who is on the side of the Kauravas. So basically, this was not like an interspecies war. It was what is called a fratricide, a familial war. Both sides were people who were humans, but the Kauravas were led by the Asuras. The Asuras is the person with the Asuric pravrutti. So that's why this whole section is talking about Asuras, not in terms of physical characteristics at all. It is talking in terms of two things: their nature and their behavior. Now you could say nature, it also refers to their worldview. So generally a person can be known by these two things: what they believe and what they pursue. Now the two are related, what we believe and how we act. Normally we act to pursue certain things. So not only what we pursue, but how we pursue those things. See, many people may want to pursue wealth. Everybody wants money in life. And money is a necessity in life. But people have their boundaries. For example, if we are in office and we have a colleague and both of us are competing for the same promotion, then we may say, okay, there is routine office politics where you speak something about that person, you speak something about that person. Okay, that's just a part of office. Not a good part, but it's a part. We do that. But somebody may say, I am not going to, even a person with office politics, they say that I am not going to, like say, frame my competitor. And to plant some false evidence in that person's file so that that person comes off as corrupt. No, I'm not going to do that. So people have a sense of boundaries. I want wealth, but I'm not going to go that far. Like people even in the office politics, I'll spread some rumors about you, you spread some rumors about me. But I'm not going to target your family. No, I'm not going to spread rumors about your daughter or your wife or something like that. There are boundaries that are there. And that is the defining difference between the divine and the demoniac. If you see, when Krishna describes the demoniac nature, if you see, at one level, he says, Idamadhyamaya alabdham imam prapse manoratham. Oh, by this scheme I got this much money, and by that scheme I'll get much more money. Now we say that is a routine human mentality. Okay, we all have schemes. We say, okay, I can invest over here, maybe I can buy this property. So that's normal. But you see, suddenly from there, where does it go? Asaumaya hatah shatrur hanishye chaparanapi. This enemy I have killed, and that enemy I will kill in the future. So it's like from being greedy to suddenly being murderous. That's a huge boundary violation. Many people are competitive, but it's one thing to be competitive, it's quite another to be destructively competitive. Like India and Pakistan have a huge rivalry in cricket. But at least till now it has not happened that before a match, the Pakistanis try to do food poisoning of Indian players or Indians try to do the food poisoning of Pakistani players. Maybe it has happened and not come out. But generally, the competition might be fierce, but it is not a destructive competition. That I want to win, I want to be better than you, but it is not by pulling you down by some devious means. So there are boundaries. And generally, most people, I think I mentioned this earlier, that there are two deterrents to wrongdoing for us. There is intelligence and there is conscience. Intelligence tells us at the level of reason, logic, you do this so you will get into trouble, so don't do this. Conscience makes us feel bad. After we do something, we feel bad. Say if you are rushing in a crowded road or a crowded room, we are rushing towards something and Suddenly we notice that we stepped on someone's foot. As soon as they notice, oh, I'm sorry, we have to apologize. But imagine somebody sees, they stepped on someone's foot, they look and they see the person and they deliberately raise their foot and stamp even harder. You know what kind of person are you, isn't it? So, normally when we do something bad, we feel bad. Yeah, I shouldn't have done this. That's regret. Now, do you think Duryodhan had any regret when he did something bad to the Pandavas? They tried to poison Bhima or tried to burn the Pandavas. What do you think? No, he had regrets. His regret was his plan was not successful. So, it is, in one sense, this person, like, the conscience is dead. There's practically no conscience over there. That's why the next verse, what it says is, that not only does a person go about murdering people, but after that, what does he say? Ishvaro ahamaham bhogi, siddho aham balvan sukhi. They see their deviousness, their viciousness as a sign of their cleverness. Just see how clever I am. I did this and nobody found out about it. So they see the wrongdoing not as something which causes their conscience to pinch them. They see it as a sign of their cleverness. And that is a deadly perversion of mentality. In modern psychology, such people are called as psychopaths and sociopaths. Now, such people basically have no sense of conscience. Most human beings, when they do something bad, they will feel bad. But there are some people who just don't. And it is such people that Krishna is calling as the demoniac nature. So the demoniac nature is basically what? It is that behavior, let's put it this way, that demoniac, the defining characteristic is not just that they have desires, but it's desires without boundaries. It is when Krishna talks about Kamesha, Krodhesha. So now this Krodha is explained differently by different commentators. One way to understand it is that it is the desire that rages against boundaries. What is the rage? The Krodha at one level can come when I try to fulfill a desire and I can't fulfill it. But it can also come, who says I can't have it? You know, I want to eat some food and I don't have the money to buy it. Who says I can't have it? I'll break into the house and take it. So that is Kamesha, Krodesha. The anger that rages against boundaries. So in Kolkata there was this horrible rape case. Somebody said, why does something like that happen? To say that it is simply lust is a oversimplification to the point of distortion. Because if it were lust, a person can just go to a prostitute. There it is also about power. It is that this person is forbidden and that's why I want to dominate and objectify and use that person. So it is Kamesha, Krodesha. That whatever boundary is there, I reject the boundary. And in rejecting that boundary and getting something that I want to get. So rejecting the boundary here means reducing that person to simply an object. And dominating that person and using and abusing that person. So Kama itself does not necessarily make a person demoniac. Even Devatas have Kama. They also have Apsaras. But it is within boundaries. So Kamesha, Krodesha. So what defines the demoniac people is that their desire does not respect any boundaries. Their desire rages against and rejects boundaries. Why should there be any boundaries at all? I can do whatever I want to do. And who will stop me from it? So this is what makes something demoniac. And the verse that we recited, so it starts from a worldview. So I talked about Duryodhan being demoniac. So if you see that, like I mentioned that earlier, Duryodhan tried to disrobe Draupadi in public. It's one thing that at least some people have fear of law or fear of God. But if you don't have any of those things, If somebody has no fear of God, then what happens is, such a person, we should have fear of them. Why? Because that person will have no boundaries at all. Now, I'm not saying that all atheistic people are terrible people. No, not necessarily. There are atheistic people who can also be sattva-guni in their lifestyle. They may also be giving charity, they may be very polite. But their politeness and kindness is not because of their atheism, it is in spite of their atheism. See, the atheistic worldview itself does not give any reason for having boundaries. Now, you may say, okay, we are all sharing the same planet, and if I destroy the planet, then we will be destroyed eventually. We are all neighbors, so we should live together. Yeah, all those are there. This concern for neighbors, that doesn't come from atheism. That comes from something else. It might come from basic survival instinct. It might come from a desire for company and relationships. So, atheism itself does not provide any boundaries. Atheism itself. So, atheism itself is not a very satisfactory worldview. I'll talk about why it is not satisfactory shortly. But, so, there is behavior that people have, and there is the worldview underlying that behavior. Now, it is not that there is a one-to-one correspondence that this worldview will lead to this behavior only. The same worldview can lead to different kinds of behaviors. And one kind of behavior can come from different worldviews. Like somebody may believe in God, and because they believe in God, they believe that whatever I am doing is what God wants me to do. And therefore, they think that my enemies are actually God's enemies. So, like for example, jihadists, what are they going to do? They are like, they don't have any hesitation in killing innocent people, even children. They will bomb them. So what happens is, they will believe in God, but belief in God can also be sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. So they are believing in God, but actually speaking, they are not seeing everyone as a child of God. They are not seeing everyone as a part of God. Like my God and my people, and you have your God and your people, they are completely different. So it's pruthaktved, it's a fragmented view that can lead to a lot of problems. So it's very important that the worldview alone does not determine behavior. So religious people can be violent, and irreligious people or non-religious people. Irreligious generally conveys some kind of immorality. Non-religious means religion is not about that. They can be peaceful. But there is a correspondence, not a congruence, not that this will lead to this now, but the normal tendency, and I'll talk about how that tendency comes out, that worldview does affect behavior. So essentially, when Krishna is talking in this verse, he's talking about some three worldviews over here. Did you talk about these three worldviews or four worldviews? This world and the other world. Did you talk about this? No. So there are four, broadly all the philosophies in this world can be broadly divided into these four categories. That this world is real and the other world is real. There is some other world that is real. So if we start from 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first worldview is, this world is real, the other world is false. This is essentially the worldview of materialism, specifically. Now, that matter is all that exists. Now, of course, again, there is complexity. That some religions have the idea of other world, but an other world is also a materialistic world. Like I believe there is another world called Jannat. But what is the enjoyment over there? It's not being with Allah, it's being with 73 virgins. So that worldview is also, now Christianity also has a very similar worldview, and they have a lot of problems because of that. Their idea is that, heaven is like a perpetual family reunion. Your grandfather and your sister who might died in childhood, or your cousin and your uncle, all of you will be reunited together, all of you will be happy. And that's why the Catholic Church has a big problem with divorce. Because if a man, say, marries a woman and the man or the woman die, or they get separated, whatever, and they marry again. If all three are Christians, then all three are supposed to be together in heaven. That's going to be a big problem, isn't it? Certainly. So, for a man to be with two women, it certainly won't be heavenly for those two women. Or for a woman to be with two men. Those two men will be at each other's throats for all of eternity. Isn't it? So the point is that sometimes the idea of the other world can also be materialistic. But broadly speaking, there is some understanding. There are some commentators who try, in Bible also they try to say that there is some difference between heaven and the kingdom of God. But it's not very clear over there. The kingdom of God is more like the spiritual world. But the point is, materialism holds that this world is all that is real. This world means not just the physical earth, but it also means what we think of as enjoyable in this world. People think of sense pleasure as enjoyable. People think of as power and prosperity. These things as bhoga and aishwarya. Bhoga, aishwarya, prasakta. So, this is materialism. This is probably the most prominent worldview. This is what Krishna talks about in the 16th verse which we recited. 16.8 C and D. Aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐌𝐔𝐍𝐈𝐓𝐘. So materialism, we'll talk about variants of materialism slightly, but let's look at the other worldviews. Now, the other world, the next worldview is neither is this world real nor is the other world real. Nothing is real. So this is asatyam. Nothing is real. This is technically called in philosophy as nihilism. Or Prabhupada uses the word voidism. Nothing is real. This is an extremely dark worldview. Because everybody needs some sense of meaning in their life. Everybody needs, what is the point of living? So there is one philosopher. So, the sophistry of fools. Anyway, so he said that life is suffering. And the more you try to remove the suffering, the worse the suffering becomes. And we say this is actually Shastric philosophy, isn't it? Dukhalaya and dukkhaujadam tadapi dukkham. That this world is full of misery, and the more you try to remove misery, the worse it becomes. But the next part, therefore the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. This was Alberto Camus, and because if they have rejected the idea of another world, and if a person is a little intelligent, they have even a little bit of sattva, then they can see that the promises of the world of pleasure, they are superficial. They don't really give satisfaction. One doesn't have to be an evolved spiritualist to realize this. See, a thoughtful person sees it to some extent. They will still get captivated by it eventually because they don't know any other kind of pleasure. But the thing is, this is an extremely dark worldview. As another philosopher, he said, every time I pass by the window of a 5th story building, I have to resist the temptation to jump out and commit suicide. Can you imagine what kind of life it must be? Because what is the point of living? So nihilism is a very dark worldview. Now, so this is asatyam. Now, apratishtamte. That this world, it may exist, but it has no foundation. That means this is impersonalism. That what is happening is that actually speaking, this world, is it real? No. Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya. Sorry, this is apratishtam. There is no foundation. That means that there is no foundation basically means that there is nothing real here, there is nothing, there is appearance, but under the appearance there is nothing more. This world looks attractive, but beyond the appearance there is nothing. There is no reality to this world, there is no reality beyond this world. Now, impersonalism is asatyam. Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya. So they're saying that this world is unreal. Now this, actually nobody can live with this world because we have to function in the world. And this can lead, this world it can make people unnecessarily pessimistic, unnecessarily passive. And many ways, now historians debate on the exact cause, but one reason that India succumbed to so many invaders, one after another, was that many people, in general, the masses, became very apathetic. Okay, if this world is ultimately Maya, if this person rules us, okay, there is some suffering, if the other person comes up, there is a little more suffering. But it's all Maya ultimately. So, when there 2-3 times in when British people were ruling India, there were famines and droughts and things like that. And several British observers, they said that, I'm shocked to see how Indians are not shocked by the conditions they live in. It's as if this kind of drought had been there in UK or in Europe, the people would have immediately revolted. But Indians, they accept it passively. Now this is not Shastric philosophy. Just accept it passively because it's Maya. And for example, Prabhu Maharaj is approached by citizens, and the citizens tell him that, we are all suffering, we are starving. And Prabhu Maharaj says, yeah, this world is Dukkhalaya, we are realizing Dukkhalaya. So good. Did he say that? Or did he say, oh, it's all Maya, even the suffering is Maya? No, this is not the philosophy. Yes. See, this world, Krishna considers it so important that he himself descends to the world to fix the world. Dharma samsthapanarthaya sabhavami yuge yuge. Yes, this world is Dukkhalaya. But what it means has to be carefully understood. It means that distress is unavoidable. That we will never have a situation of perfect happiness in this world. But that does not mean that there cannot be situations of greater distress and lesser distress. And Krishna says, Yuktahara viharasya. What does he say by that? Yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So if this world is dukkhalaya, then how can there be destruction of dukkha? The point is that yes, our bodies are going to grow old, get diseased and die. But if we eat healthy food, the distress will be much lesser. If we are eating unhealthy foods, if we are eating toxic foods, the distress will be much more. So, the way we conduct ourselves in this world, the way we conduct the world, to whatever extent we have the capacity to conduct, that makes a big difference. So we could have rulers who are sattvic, which is very rare in human history. But the difference between a Rajasic ruler and a Tamasic ruler can also be huge. A Rajasic ruler may want material prosperity, but the Rajasic ruler actually understands that if I become wealthy and I keep all the people poor, not only is it a bad thing from a moral perspective, but from an economic perspective it is bad. People will constantly see the disparity in wealth and they will rebel. So if I am becoming wealthy, I have to share the wealth. So, but a Tamasic leader will just exploit people. So the point I am making is that this world is Maya, therefore we shouldn't care for it. That is also a very dangerous philosophy. Now the Bhakti worldview, we could call it devotionalism. Prabhupada has used this word in his early Bhakti world articles. Afterwards he did not use this word so much. But devotionalism is, this world is real and the other world is also real. Now the other world is a bigger reality. It is an eternal reality. But it is also a reality. So this world is also real, that world is also real. Both are real. And by functioning in this world in a responsible, dharmic way, we can progress toward the other world. So now when the demoniac worldview comes up, now Krishna is interestingly saying all these three, 1, 2, 3, they all can be demoniac. Now presently among these three worldviews, which is the most prominent? Materialism. So we will talk a little bit. So what I am doing right now is, I am going up and down like this. So I talked about Duryodhan as an example of the timely aspect of what Krishna is teaching. That Krishna is not mentioning Duryodhana, but he's clearly referring to Duryodhana if you consider the life of Duryodhana. Then we talk about worldviews. We talk about how worldviews are in one sense timeless. There are different worldviews that are there across the world. But now we will talk about contemporary world. So how this same demoniac worldview is seen in today's world. So the prominent worldview today is materialism. But the problem is materialism itself does not give much meaning to life. Because okay, we are just existing and we are just blobs of protoplasm who come alive for some time and then we a bug or a bang and we are finished. Everybody needs something higher to their life. So what could be that higher thing? If we have rejected the idea of any another world, so science especially rejected that as a what they call as a pre-scientific mythology. There is no world apart from this world. So then, now we could go into various worldviews, but I'll focus primarily on science over here. See, science is primarily, the word science has many different meanings, but one is, it refers to a method and it refers to also the knowledge from that method. Like you use the word the scientific method. There is no universally accepted definition of science itself. There are multiple definitions. But in a simple term, science can refer to a method. What is the method? Okay, we make some observations. We try to find some patterns within those observations. We come up with a theory. Then we do an experiment to see if the theory is right. So this method is called a scientific method. And then the knowledge that is developed by the scientific method is also called as science. So physics is considered a science. Biology is considered a science. So science can refer to broadly these two things. But from science also comes a worldview. And that worldview is called as scientism. So scientism, see, science itself is not a worldview. You could put it another way, science is a way of looking at the world. But scientism is the worldview that holds that science is omniscient. What is the meaning of omniscient? Sorry? All-knowing. That what the idea is that science can give us answers to all questions. And if there is any question that can't be answered by science, then that question is not worth asking. The questions that are beyond science are just useless. Now, significantly speaking, there is no scientific proof for scientism. Isn't it? Scientism is an ideological claim. Science can give us some knowledge, but there is no experiment that science can do which will show that science will answer all questions. And even in our day-to-day life, we implicitly understand that science does not answer all questions. If a brain surgeon comes back home and his wife is very upset with him, says, "Oh, darling, what's wrong?" He's not ready to say, "Okay, let me do a brain scan to find out what's wrong with you." He says, "You better go and scan your own brain first." We can't understand people's emotions by simply any scientific mechanism. Say if you go back home and your mother makes a delicious birthday cake, delicious cake for you, and it's not your birthday. Now you can get the best scientists, chemists, neuroscientists, this, that. Okay, study this cake and tell me why my mother made this cake. You can do as many experiments as you want with the cake, you will not come to know. And then finally, the only way to know is ask your mother. And your mother will say, actually, today is the 20th anniversary of the day when you developed your first tooth. Now, only a mother will remember something like this. But, no amount of brain scan is going to tell that. Isn't it? So, this is not to criticize science. It is to point out the problem with scientism. So science and scientism are two different things. So why are we talking about scientism over here? See, this has led to worldviews. Science as a tool of knowledge, tool for acquiring knowledge is very powerful. And it is transformative in many ways. And it's important to know that science doesn't necessarily mean modern science. Ayurveda was also a form of science. Maths was there in the form of Vedic mathematics. Many of the things that were like chemistry seems to have been quite advanced in the Vedic times also. So, modernity does not have a monopoly on science. Although normally we use the word modern science nowadays. So science is a way of looking at the world. And if you look at books like Sushruta Samhita, Charak Samhita, there's a lot of research over there. There's a lot of observation and learning from observation. These books have evolved. So, with time, depending on how the environment changes, what kind of place a person is living in, so what kind of treatments will work, there's a lot of observation that has gone into these books. So the point is that scientism is a worldview. So what happens with this worldview? There is no other world. We rejected the other world, but people in general are not satisfied with life as we experience it. We say our daily life in the material world. Now, it's like sometimes it is distressing. Now, this doesn't work out, that doesn't work out, but on a routine level, it is boring. Life is basically boring. And actually speaking, the more one goes into Rajoguna, the more life becomes boring. Why? Because the more somebody goes into the mode of passion, the more their definition of pleasure becomes sense pleasure. And sense pleasure can be had only for such a finite amount of time. No, sense pleasure, how much can we eat? If somebody thinks sex is the biggest pleasure of life, okay. But then how long can one enjoy that pleasure? And when that pleasure is not available, then what do? Life just becomes unstimulating and boring. And basically all that remaining time just becomes a grind while one can get to the next opportunity for pleasure. But on the other hand, somebody is Sattva-guna, so they can look at the beauty of nature, they can appreciate the beauty. Somebody is Rajoguna, they see the beauty of nature and they only think, oh, I saw something like that in a romantic movie, where is my partner for me? They just can't appreciate the subtler pleasures of life. So, the more we go into Rajo and Tamoguna, the more the sattvic pleasures, they just start, people just can't appreciate them. So, as one Indian young man, he went to America with my brother's friend, slowly becoming a devotee. So he said he grew up watching T20 matches. And in America, he went, and in America, he got a brilliant boy, so he went into a big company, he got a big post. And he said, these Americans, they go and play golf. He says, I have not seen a more boring game than this. See, among all outdoor games, golf is the most sattvic. It's like, you hit one ball and you walk so far, and then during that time you talk with each other, and then the action is very less. So the point is that, so he said that after watching and playing T20, playing golf is like such a boring thing for me. I'm not recommending golf. I'm just pointing that even among games, there could be more sattvic, there could be more rajasic, there could be more tamasic. And now, in America, they have like huge golf courses, and it's quite, in one sense, it's scenic. They keep it, it's like a wealthy people's sport, but they keep it scenic, and you can actually talk with people. They say more corporate deals are signed on the golf course than actually in boardroom meetings, because that's where you make friends with each other. But the point is that you cannot appreciate that if somebody is too much in Rajoguna. So what happens is that daily life in general is boring. So when it is boring, what do? We have to make it better. See, atheism does not remove the suffering of life. Life is still suffering, whether you are an atheist or a theist. But atheism removes the hope that our suffering may be for some purpose. That, okay, I'm suffering in this world, but there is some higher plan, and I will be taken to a better place. So atheism, it does not remove suffering. Because even atheists have to grow old, even atheists suffer from adhyatmic, adibhautik, adhyatmic kleshas. So atheism does not remove suffering. What does it remove? It removes the hope that suffering may have some purpose. That this suffering is a part of a higher plan. So that's why atheism becomes a very dark world. Now of course, materialism and atheism are not entirely the same things. There can be religious people who are materialists. And there can be atheists who may have some kind of spiritual ideas. It's a complex thing. But there are some atheists who believe in meditation, and they say our consciousness is not limited to the brain. But in general, atheism and materialism are very closely related. So what happens? That people want some hope, some meaning, something of value in my life. So what has happened is science, through technology, when science rejected the idea of another world, then science through technology created the mythology that we will make this world into paradise. There is no need for any other heaven because technology will make this world into heaven. In fact, there were some Christian scientists who said that Jesus will deliver us at the spirit, or rather God will deliver us at the spiritual level through Jesus, and God will deliver us at the material level through science. So they saw science as a gift given by God. Now, okay, humans have intelligence and we can use intelligence to make things better. Say, if it's hot, we have a fan, we have air conditioning. In principle, we can always make things better. But the problem is, we can't make things into paradise. That science, what it decided was that there is the paradise, what you can call as a religious or a spiritual paradise, that they said it is just a myth. But they said what we will do is we will create a high-tech paradise. We will transform this world, high-tech paradise. This world will become a high-tech paradise. But what has happened is that has turned out to be a myth. Certainly we have phenomenal progress. Now our telephones and telecommunication and internet and now AI. But the problem is, in spite of all this, the problem is people are profoundly unhappy. What happens is that at the physical level, we have comforts, lots of comforts. But at the mental level, we have misery. So, in the high-tech paradise, people are comfortably miserable. People are very comfortable. I may be sitting in the AC room, but in the AC room, I have depression. I have a panic attack. People have what they call as SAD. What is SAD? Sad, of course it is sad. If I would ask you what is SAD when SAD means SAD, then that is a sad question on my side. But SAD refers to three main mental health problems: stress, anxiety, depression. So, mental health problems are a great tragedy in this world. So people are existentially lonely. In UK, they have created an official department called the Ministry for Loneliness. Now, how do you address? See, loneliness is a social problem. You can't have governmental solutions to that. What can a government do? Government will appoint a person, go and talk with all lonely people. Well, it doesn't work like that. Loneliness is not just because you don't have anyone to talk with. It is because you don't have anyone you can trust so that you can talk with that person. Isn't it? The deepest loneliness is when we are surrounded with people whom we can't trust. Or we are surrounded with people who don't understand us. So if you feel that they don't understand us, we can't trust them. They can't trust us. So these are serious issues. Now, the point now, I'm not saying here science itself has led to mental health problems or technology has led to mental health problems. That could be a different thesis, we could argue in favor or against it. The point I'm saying here is that the attempts to create a paradise in this world have not worked. They have backfired. That while at a technological level we have created a lot of comforts, but there are a lot of problems. And at a basic level, we don't have to talk about God. At a sociological level itself, there are huge problems that are happening. So you could talk at a social level of mental health problems. Happy people don't commit suicide. Suicide, it's not just one or two people. It's often very successful people, very materially successful people. There are 1 million people who commit suicide every year. The Ukraine war has been going on for about more than a year or so. And in that, now about 150,000 people have been killed, or 180,000 people have been killed, which is about 2 million. And everybody's talking, there's such a war is happening. But every year, that many people are killing themselves. It's like the COVID pandemic, we stopped the whole world because there's a fear that millions of people will die. But here, 1 million people are killing themselves every year. And just going on. And while there are attempts being made to provide people mental health relief and things like that, but it's not working. No, not just at a mental level, you can look at a familial level. One of the basic, even if we take science holds that we are nothing but biological creatures. Not all science. One of the implications of say, one implication of the atheistic interpretation of theory of evolution. That evolution itself doesn't have to be only materialistic. But the atheists have used evolutionary theory to foist atheism as the only scientific belief. But the basic functionality, according to biology, is reproduction. We survive and we reproduce. That's what all living beings do. So, all living beings fight to live. No other living being commits suicide. Of course, some dogs have been known to commit suicide when they are spoiled by human association. Just like some dogs may start smoking and drinking. It's a strange thing. Have you heard of this word, yoga? Yeah, obviously you have heard yoga. Have you heard doga? Doga is basically yoga with dogs. Like my dog is my best friend, so I want to do everything with my dog. So actually if you Google doga, you will see that there are specialized doga teachers and doga teaching institutes. So I with my hands, my dog also spreads his front paws. I stand on one leg, the dog also learns to stand on one paw. And I and dog, we are yoga partners. We are doga partners. And then there is doga, there is also koga. What is koga? So, now the point I'm making over here is that basic biology has these two things. All living beings, they survive, they struggle to survive, and they struggle to reproduce. So now what is happening in today's world? People are ending their lives. So survival, it's certainly many people are going against this. And as far as reproduction is concerned, the reproductive rates in the Western world are alarmingly down. Japan and South Korea, these are in Europe and America, the population has not fallen on a steep demographic cliff. That's primarily because they have immigrants coming in. So the immigrants have children, but the local people, most of them don't have any children. And the immigrants also, when they settle down, 1 or 2 generations later, even their children don't want to have any children. Now countries like Japan and South Korea, they don't have any immigration. So in Japan and South Korea, it's a big crisis now. That what is going to happen? Because they just don't have enough people to continue their industries. So generally about 2.2, 2.3 is what is the reproduction rate that every 2 people, if their population survive, they have to have about the rate of 2.2, 2.3. Now India, the problem we say is we have too much people, too many people. The population is exploding. But actually in the Western world, population implosion is a big problem. So happy people have children. You know, taking care of children is a natural nurturing instinct to human beings. But if somebody feels, that whatever reasons, the world is so terrible, I don't want to bring a child in this world, or I can't take care of a child. And many people, it's not that they don't want to take care of a child. It is that just life is so complicated. Having children, taking care of children is so expensive. And parenting is such a formidable responsibility. But they just don't want to have children. And then the result of that, now, I'm not blaming people for not having children, but this is, all that I'm saying is that where is progress? See, if the basic biological function for existence, that itself is becoming a huge problem for people, then where is the progress? We can go into specific factors which lead to this, and those factors are there. But overall, if we say this world is, we are made into paradise, and what is the sign of paradise? Humanity is going to become extinct. Why? Not because somebody is attacking, because people only are not having children. Then it's going to be a huge problem. Actually, there are now the fastest growing religion in the world is Islam. And there they have the idea that there are Muslims who say that there was in 14th, 15th century or something, maybe sometime there was a Muslim king who penetrated into Europe, but the French king stopped him over there. And after that they have been trying to penetrate again and again and again, but it's not succeeded. They say now it's Allah has arranged for us to take over Europe without any war, because it is simply through reproduction. It is now, and not just Muslims alone, and I'm not talking about a sinister conspiracy to take over the world through reproduction. All that I'm saying is that actually reproduction is a basic function. Now in London, I was just there 1 month ago. London, the white people in London are in a minority now. So immigrants are there. And not immigrants, but for every say Hindu immigrates there, about 50 Muslims immigrate over there. So again, this is not a religious criticism. I would say that Islam, from whatever extent it has, there is still a family culture over there. Have children, take care of children, be responsible for children. So now, if with all our progress we stop reproducing, then what is the point? What is the meaning of progress? So Italy now, they have started that Italy is among slightly more religious countries. So they have their Pope and big bishops. They have said that any family which has more than 2 children, the Pope or some religious head at that level will come for the name-giving ceremony of that child. So that way they are trying to give some religious impetus for people to have children. Now, of course, not having children, it is not just a lifestyle choice. There are many things over there. So there is basically, like I mentioned yesterday, there was something called the sexual revolution. Now, in our history books, we don't talk much about it. But sexual revolution, the idea of that was that just like there's a political revolution, the French Revolution was that the government is controlling all of us and we want to be free. So sexual revolution was the idea that society, through culture, through religion, whatever, is controlling us sexually. And we will reject that. And they said we will just have free mixing and all kinds of things. So there was a thinker called Sigmund Freud. Some of you may have heard of him. Now he was brilliant in his own ways, but he was also perverted. So he, in his childhood, he felt sexually attracted to his mother. And he writes about it in his books. And he later on felt a lot of guilt and remorse and conflicting emotions because of that. So he came to a conclusion that actually every boy feels sexually attracted to his mother and every girl feels sexually attracted to her father. And this attraction is natural. But social taboos, they force people to suppress those feelings. And those suppressed feelings lead to mental health problems in the future. Therefore, if you don't want people to have mental health problems, basically all taboos should be removed from society. It is forbidden to forbid. And whatever you want to do, you should do. The result of that was devastating in society. So now the multiple things are happening. One thing was that technology has led to a lot of things. There are many blessings of technology, but we can look at some of the harmful effects. So we could say WMDs. What is WMD? Anyone knows? Okay, weapons of mass destruction, like nuclear weapons or whatever. There are now biochemical weapons also. Was COVID virus itself a biological weapon? Maybe, maybe not. The lab leak theory is more or less widely accepted now. Whether the lab leak in China and Wuhan was intentional or accidental, that is probably nobody's going to find out because all the evidence has been wiped out from there. But biological weapons are germs, like anthrax was there before. So there are weapons of mass destruction. So Prabhupada himself said, people used to kill each other in the past. Now we have created more and more sophisticated weapons to kill each other. So this is a very dark technology. Is, you could say, the dark products or dark products. So Einstein was the person who actually came up with the idea that he wrote a letter to the American president saying that Germany may get the new atom bombs, so you have to make them first. And then when the atom bombs were used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, historians still debate whether actually America needed to use those weapons. They were winning the war anyway. They could have won without it. But he himself regretted it at that time. He said, that this was a terrible discovery. And it's ironic that the greatest scientific insight of the greatest scientific brain of the last century led to the greatest destruction of the last century. Greatest single instance of destruction. Again, here, see, I'm being very careful about the argument. I'm not saying science or technology themselves led to the destruction of human beings. I'm saying that there's a promise that came from science and technology. But that promise has not been fulfilled. In fact, something else has happened. We humans now, we have so many weapons which we can destroy ourselves. So, now another big discovery has been the internet. Now, internet has of course connected people in many different ways. There are many positives about it. But one big result of this is distraction. If weapons of mass destruction cause destruction, there is distraction. At a psychological level, people are hugely distracted. And even normal functioning is becoming more and more difficult now. So we have 1,000 Facebook friends, but they don't even have one real life friend actually. And that's a terrible situation to be in. So, I saw one cartoon where somebody said, a man is telling his friend, yesterday my broadband Wi-Fi went down. So, I spent some time with my family. They seem to be like nice people. So, now that may not have happened to that degree, but it is very much on the path. Because what has happened, psychological level itself, the virtual world seems to be much more stimulating than the real world. Especially if in Rajoguna, Tamoguna, then the real world developing relationships takes time. Making friendships takes time. In the virtual world, it's just like you start a friendship with a swipe, end a friendship with a swipe. It's just so cheap. There's no deep investment. Now, I'm not saying that online through communication people cannot find like-minded people. People cannot have deep friendship. It's possible. But in the majority, it doesn't work like that. So internet has given us great power, but there was a thinker, Carl Jung, he said that the more outer power we get, the more inner power we need. The more outer power we get, the more inner power we need. Like say America has this rule that anybody can legally possess guns. But the problem with that is that if a gun owner is not a responsible person, then that person can just go out madly shooting people. You may have heard about school shootings in America. It's tragic. I was giving a class in a university, and I had not started using this tablet. So I was writing something on a whiteboard, and suddenly I heard some alarm. So I didn't pay much attention. I just continued writing, and I turned around. There's nobody in the class. What happened? And then somebody said, "Duck, duck!" The organizer who had organized the program, he was ducking under the desk. And I said, "You duck under the desk." I said, "What happened?" He says, "That alarm is of a gunman in the premises." So then immediately I went and hid under the table also. And then after that there was a knock. I said, "What gunman will actually knock you?" And then the security over there, he came in. He said, "This is just a trial run. We were checking whether everybody ducks or So the point is that technology has astronomically increased the outer power that we have. But has the inner power increased correspondingly? Now everybody has, I can get angry with you, you can get angry with me. I can badmouth you, I can spread some rumors about you, you can spread some rumors about me. This is just a normal human tendency. But today, somebody can spread a rumor on social media, and that rumor can spread across the world. And how do you counter something? Just so that gossiping tendency, that backbiting tendency that is there, and if people don't have inner restraint, then it can lead to a huge amount of damage. So basically, even from a material perspective, leave alone a spiritual perspective. So I talk about people not having children, people wanting to end their lives. This is simply from a biological perspective. Society is going down a very dark track. So what can be done about this? Krishna himself talks about this whole demoniac nature, and this demoniac nature that is there. There is a whole philosophy that has come, especially in Silicon Valley. This called it transhumanism. Transhumanism is that humanity will transcend its limitations through technology. So what is the idea here? That actually we grow old. So we will find out the gene which causes aging, and then we'll switch off that gene, and then nobody will grow old. And there are so many advertisements that come over. You buy this, you wear this, you eat this. This is anti-aging. When yes, the World Gerontological Association issued a directive in public interest. There is no medicine, no treatment, no mechanism available right now that can reverse, slow or stop the aging process. You can't reverse, you can't make the old people young. They're becoming old, we can't slow it down, we can't stop it. What can we do? We can just give you a facelift. So that there are wrinkles we can put them down so they don't see it. So we can't do anything about this. But there's a huge amount of propaganda. One of my friends in America, he turned 50. And he said, from somewhere I got like so many advertisements. He says, life begins at 50. He said that actually before you were 50, you have professional responsibilities, you have family responsibilities. Now you have earned, you have got a career, you have settled in life. Now is the time to enjoy. So actually he said, if you have digestive problems, don't worry, we have got this remedy. If you've got backache problems, you've got this remedy. If you have vision problems, you've got this remedy. He was telling me, I was thinking, is there some Maya remedy over here? So, the idea is that this transhumanism, it promises a lot, but it does not deliver. Have any of you heard of this field called eugenics? No. So eugenics was a field that came, again I'm not blaming Darwinism for this, but this related to the idea of social Darwinism. Now social Darwinism was the idea that just as there are different species across nature, and the fitter species survive and the unfit species die. So like that they applied it to humanity, and they said certain human races are fitter than others. So for example, the white Caucasian, they are the fittest of all races because they have become the most prosperous, and everybody else is unfit. So they had their own grading about who is fit, who is unfit. So that idea was taken by Hitler. And Hitler said that among the hierarchy of species, we the Germans, we are the original Nazis, and we are the original Aryans, and we are the best. And the Jews are the worst. So they said, by nature's own arrangement, the Jews will be eradicated. Because survival of the fittest, they will become extinct. But now, we humans have advanced through technology. So we can help nature on its way. We can help nature on its way. So he started by, anybody who is now we don't use that word, mentally retarded. He said that somebody has special needs, somebody has, all such people, first thing, he had them, thousands and thousands of people physically sterilized. Like, these are burden on humanity. We should not let them reproduce. Then he did that for all physically handicapped. Somebody doesn't have eyes, somebody has lost a limb, somebody has lost, can't hear. He first sterilized all of them. Then after sterilizing, he said, why? Don't let them reproduce, why should we even let them live? And so, two sides he went. One side was that, according to him, see, there have been many mass murderers in human history. Genghis Khan is said to have, he went across Europe and he killed how many millions we don't know. But the Holocaust was the first time in recorded human history where industrial efficiency was brought to mass murder. There is mass murder, but industrial efficiency. Industrial efficiency means what? You have to kill people, you have to chop off their head, you have to hang them. All that takes so much time. Just have a gas chamber and just put people in gas chamber. So kill them and kill them with industrial efficiency. So it is among any kind of mass murder, this was the most horrendous. And again, I'm not saying that science or Darwinism led to this. I'm saying that it was used as a justification. So on the negative side was social Darwinism. On the positive side, there's no positive about it, but the positive side was, they said eugenics is, we try to find out what are the best characteristics among all people. And we take the gene, somebody is brilliant, somebody is physically powerful, somebody is good looking. So find out what are the genes or what are the characteristics that bring those, that make that person like that, and try to artificially bring them together. And by that, they said we will create a superhuman being. And then we will have a race of superhumans. But the point is that this has never worked out, and more importantly, who is going to decide who is a superhuman being? The people who will decide that, they'll say we'll eliminate everyone else. And it doesn't work like that. So again, eugenics is slowly making a comeback. Now, it's not mainstream science by any means. Eugenics was highly discredited after the, at that time Germany was the most advanced scientific country. More than America also. America really gave a boost to its scientific advancement because Germany was advancing. That's why Einstein was not a fool. When Einstein said the Germans will develop an atom bomb, it was because they were investing so much in science and technology. But he had his agenda against Jews, and many of the prominent scientists were Jews. They went to America, and then they helped America develop. So this whole idea of eugenics, it can be very easily misused. So again, you see, the promise is maybe well-intentioned for people. People are diseased, people are prone to this, people are prone to that. So we will change that. How? We will genetically engineer a new species. That's evolution aided by science. Well, it doesn't work like that at all in real life. So the demoniac worldview, see what is demoniac over here? The action, like say, whoever developed a weapon for the first time, maybe they developed a bomb, they might not have a demoniac. They might yes, wars do happen and we need weapons to fight wars. But the point is, when that outer power is developed and there is no inner power developed correspondingly, then what will happen is, it can lead to disaster. So fortunately, although these two wars are happening, we have to give credit where it is due. Nobody has used weapons of mass destruction until now. Israel has that, Russia has the biggest stockpile. They have not used it. So to some extent, saner heads are prevailing. But how long, we don't know. So this whole idea that we can make this world into a paradise, that idea itself is at its core a demoniac idea. Like, now, should we try to make things better? Of course. Doesn't mean we have to stay suffering. See, Ayodhya was a place of prosperity. Lanka was also a place of prosperity. But Lanka, the whole purpose was Ravan wanted to be God and Ravan wanted to make Lanka into heaven. So the idea is, in the service of God we can act. Then, when there is the service of God, there are boundaries. I'll go back and conclude this on the same point. That in the demoniac worldview, there are two possibilities. The demoniac worldview. See, there are in any activity there are means and there are ends. Now the ends the best situation is the ends that we pursue are good and the means are also good. But the ends may be good, the means may be bad. Then the ends may be bad and the means may be good. This is very rare. But the ends are bad and the means are also bad. So, put it this way, means and ends. So we may say, making this world into a paradise, what is the problem with it? Well, the point is this world cannot be made into a paradise. Ecology, if you consider, ecology is a big concern. That has been politicalized, so I won't go into that specifically. But in the past, it was implicitly understood that nature is far bigger than us. And we need to live in respect and harmony with nature. But as the Industrial Revolution started growing, as science and technology started growing, then what happened was, the idea changed that nature is not a mother that nurtures us. Many of us may quote that Francis Bacon's quote, knowledge is power. Now, it has some wisdom in it, but actually Francis Bacon, when he said that, his idea was that actually science through technology will give us power to control nature. So his vision, and people of his time, the vision was, nature is not like a mother. Nature is a stepmother. And she is evil, she is wicked. She causes drought, she causes famine, she causes natural disasters. So she is whimsical and cruel. And just like a wicked stepmother needs to be controlled, so technology is the means by which we will control this wicked stepmother of nature. And it was with that idea that we went about doing many things, and now we started realizing that nature has far more complex factors at work than what we can even figure out. And now we're thinking about how we can have more environmental consciousness, how we can live in harmony with nature. And there is, many people are realizing now, a theistic worldview. Like we have NGOs, now there is a whole genre which United Nations working called FBOs. FBO is faith-based organizations. Because what they found is, even if you tell people, oh, environmental disaster is going to come about, but still people don't stop. People keep enjoying, keep indulging, keep consuming. They said that the only way we can protect the environment is if people can find some non-material satisfaction. And the non-material satisfaction primarily comes from a religious or a spiritual worldview. That's why they are encouraging religion and spirituality. They may not believe in religion and spirituality, the conclusions of that, but still they are encouraging that. So, like in the West, people are turning towards meditation, towards yoga, towards spiritual practices for calming the mind. Why? Because they're realizing that technology does not bring about calmness of the mind. So that inner power, outer power can come through science and technology, but inner power comes primarily through philosophy and spirituality. It is through practice. First we have a worldview that is aligned with reality, and then eventually there is purification that comes from spirituality. So the Gita concludes this particular chapter by saying, Tasmat Shastram Pramanante Karya Karya Vyavasthitam Gyatva Shastra Vidhanuktam Karma Kartu Viharasya. Therefore, with Shastra understand what is to be done and what is not to be done, and then mold your life accordingly. So it is that scripture is not just meant for like religious veneration. Oh, this is a sacred book. We believe in the sacred book. Like eventually people take Bhagavad Gita as it is and keep it as it is. So that is not, it is actually to bring about a personal transformation. The transformation happens at two levels. First is in terms of our worldview, and then in terms of our behavior. So there are many people who are recognizing the shortfalls of materialism, shortfalls of the current worldview, and there are many people who are trying to bring about a change, and some are working at some level, but you know that the integration of a solid worldview, a well-reasoned, a time-honored worldview, and a time-honored way of living that can actually help raise human consciousness, that is very much lacking today. So Prabhupada said that there is no use of crying for world peace unless there is an awakening of divine consciousness in the individual. So when we are chanting Hare Krishna, when we are coming and attending satsang like this, sometimes we feel we are being too otherworldly. The world has so many problems, India has so many problems. What are we doing about it? There is suddenly there's fanaticism, there is corruption, there is this, there is that. Yeah, there's sexual violence, all that is there, it's true. But that the way it is going to be solved is not just by political activism or wars. The cause of these problems are ultimately lust, anger, and greed. And they all can be combined in various ways. So anger leads to violence, lust leads to sexual abuse. Now I'm saying it's not only lust, lust can be combined to anger, it can combine power. Greed leads to corruption. So now, if there is purification at the inner level, if there is greater inner power that is developed, then at the external level, the crime will go down. So there is in our scripture, the two things. There is Shastra and there is Shastra. Shastra is wisdom and Shastra is weapon. So generally the Brahmanas, they focus on Shastra, the Kshatriyas focus on Shastra. Both have to work together. Not everybody is going to listen to good wisdom and change themselves. There needs to be proper law and order. There needs to be a proper military for defending the country. Shastra is required. But if there is only Shastra without Shastra, it doesn't work. If there is only Shastra, then what happens is, it is knowledge but without much transform, without much social power. If there is only Shastra, then what happens is, it's without much wisdom. So, there has Prabhupada said we want Brahmanas with the Kshatriya spirit. One knows like the person who's an inner seer and an outer doer. So the Brahmanas are seers, we have proper vision. The Kshatriyas are doers. So we don't just want seers who don't care for the world, and we don't just want doers who don't have a bigger vision of the world. So when we have both of these, the scripture, the Shastra can offer all of us that wisdom and that opportunity. Okay, each one of us, how can we be a seer and a doer in our particular field? It could be our family, it could be our home, it could be our preaching kshetra, wherever it is. So this influence of the demoniac worldview that is there, that can be countered. So some people need force to be countered, but without wisdom, any imposition of force will simply be seen as trampling on people's rights, and people will reject that. So there has to be a change in the worldview, and along with that, a supporting social structure. Now, how exactly it will work out, we don't know. Yesterday we talked about Srila Prabhupada. About 50-60 years before, nobody would have thought that all over the world there will be people who will be adopting the spiritual worldview of the Bhagavad Gita and practicing bhakti. It's not just in terms of chanting Hare Krishna and dancing and singing. It is, yes, of course, non-material enrichment. But along with that, people are pursuing a more meaningful life. People are living a life of higher values. So we are not alone. Krishna has a higher plan, and we are parts of Krishna's plan. We have the opportunity to be parts of Krishna's plan. So each one of us, we try to develop our own combination of becoming a seer and becoming a doer. And we'll see what Krishna has in store for us, what Krishna can do through us if we become ready instruments in His hands. So I'll summarize. We went quite a long journey today, but I first started by talking about how there is the demoniac nature, and there is the specific at that time, it is timeless, and there is timely. So I started with the timely in the past example of Duryodhana, that he had greed but lobha without boundaries. That from wanting money to be ready to kill for money. So kama or krodha, kama and krodha. The krodha is the raging, the anger against boundaries. That's what characterizes the demoniac nature. Just having kama or lobha doesn't make one demoniac in itself. Having kama and lobha that rages against and rejects boundaries. Then in terms of the timeless aspect, I discussed about the worldviews. That the four worldviews are this world, real, and the other world, real. So, which are the four worldviews? The first is materialism. Second is voidism, nihilism. Third is impersonalism. So we discussed the problems with nihilism is it's completely hopeless. There's no hope at all. Impersonalism makes us too passive unnecessarily. And devotionalism. This is the Gita's worldview. Then we especially spent a good amount of time looking at the materialism. And I talked about how materialism is associated with scientism. Science is both a body of knowledge and a methodology for getting that body of knowledge. But scientism is an ideology that is not justified by science. Sorry, that has no proof based on science. So scientism, what it led to is that we will make this world into a high-tech paradise, basically a paradise. So, but the problem with that is we have become comfortably miserable. And when we say miserable, we didn't even get to the moral dimension here. We're talking about simply sociological or biological parameters. That the basic characteristic of any species according to biology itself is that they should survive and they should reproduce. So both of these are decreasing. People are not able to, or not willing to, or not doing it, not reproduction. So many people are committing suicide. So population would have fallen off. And the more this scientific world is adopted, the more people are not having children. It's only because of immigrants the Western population is, Western world has some population going on. So the paradise has not turned out at all, but rather it seems that we have got a nightmarish situation. And then as a part of the nightmare, I talked about several things. First of all, weapons of mass destruction are there. And there is distraction, there is technology in terms of internet. Now again, the weapons of mass destruction can serve a positive purpose. They can act as deterrent. So I'm not saying it's all bad. See, it's very clear, I'm trying to make this point, that it is not that science or technology can be blamed for the problem that are in society. All that we are saying is, science and technology came with a promise. That promise has not been fulfilled. And the reason we understand is that there is power, there is outer power that technology is providing, but who is providing the inner power? Inner power is not there. We have to discuss about eugenics over here. How the idea that somebody may think, oh, we want to create a superhuman species. But in that case, who will decide whom to remove, whom to eliminate? So, without the inner power, outer power can be terribly misused. So, what we need is that this inner power has to be developed through spirituality. Through Shastra, basically. We talk about the combination of Shastra and Shastra. So, we all want to become seers and doers. We all can be empowered by Krishna to be, in our own small way or large way, whatever Krishna wants, be a part of the solution. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Do we have time for a few questions? Should we take one question? In the evening we will have a QA session primarily, so we can have questions at that time. Any one question anyone has? Yes, Prabhu.
I wanted to ask, you mentioned about the other world and this world, the current world. So many times when we are trying to speak certain aspects of the other world to people who do not have enough faith in the other world, so to what degree science can aid us in doing that, and how much spiritualists should rely on scientific methods to help people understand?
How much science can realize the spiritual world?
No. Means many times the people who do not have enough faith in the other world,
how much can science be used to help them develop that faith?
To what degree we should use it?
Okay, good point. See, or not, let's put it this way, that what is science essentially? There is no universal definition or accepted definition of science. But in general, science is associated with natural explanations for natural phenomena. By natural, we could use the word material, but that's the word that they use. So for example, when Newton saw the apple falling, or he felt the apple falling, whatever the version of the story we accept. And Newton believed in God. When he wanted to know what made the apple fall, he was not interested in explaining God made the apple fall. Why? Because he was looking for a natural explanation for natural phenomena. So now, can God be an explanation? He can be, of course. When he talked about discovered the principle of gravity, he said the planets are moving according to gravity. Now he said this has been arranged by God, but he was still looking for if any event that happens, you can have a mechanical explanation, and beyond that you can have a personal explanation. A mechanical, a personal. Let's say for example, there's a India-Pakistan cricket match, the last ball is there, we need a 6 to win. And there's a bouncer, and Virat Kohli hits a 6. We win the match. And everybody's celebrating. After the post-match conference is there. And press conference, the interviewer asks, how did you hit this 6? And Virat Kohli replies, by Newton's laws of motion. Now, is that the correct explanation? Well, you can say yes, the ball came at this pace, I swung the bat at this pace, the ball and the bat met at this angle, if the bat had met the top edge, then the ball would have gone to the fielder. Isn't it? So you can say you did a law of motion. But that's not the relevant explanation over there. The question would be, did you anticipate your bouncer? Had you practiced a hook shot? How did you manage your footwork? There's a personal dimension to it. Or the personal and the mechanical can both go together. They can, but there are two different levels of explanation. So when science and spirituality, we try to bring them together. So one is, that there are different ways we can do it. We can say that science itself should be expanded to look for non-natural means non-material explanations. That's one approach that science, in terms of its ontology. Ontology is the study of the nature of reality. That in terms of, it should consider non-material explanations or non-material causes. So for example, where does consciousness come from? Science should be open to the idea that there is something beyond the brain. Non-material causes. Now the reservation that science has to this is, they say this, if we start opening ourselves to non-material causes, then that will completely stop the progress of science. So for example, when the Black Plague had occurred in Europe, almost 1/3 of Europe died because of the Black Plague. So there was the local thing, the belief was that this is caused by some evil spirit possessing people. And the church was doing exorcisms and things like that. So scientists said, we didn't believe that stuff. We studied and we found germs. So the idea is that if we come to look for material explanations, we find an explanation that we can do something about. So many scientists consider that looking only for material causes and not looking for non-material causes is a bedrock principle of science. So, and they say that if you want to talk about the soul, if you want to talk about God, these are extraordinary explanations and they require extraordinary evidence. And that level of evidence is not available. That's their argument. So in terms of ontology, that science should consider non-material factors. So that's the approach that we try to take nowadays. In our classes in DYS, we try to use scientific evidence for the existence of soul, use scientific evidence for the existence of God. Now, that's one approach. The other is in terms of functionality. Functionality means that rather than trying to say that the soul exists, can, in terms of the functional aspects of human life, can we see the effects of spirituality? Say for example, if somebody does meditation, then at a subjective level we can say meditation leads to people feeling peaceful. But at an objective level, are there some changes in the wiring in the brain? If we do neural imaging, do we see something which is, the science looks for the tangible, the measurable, the repeatable. If somebody says that, I saw God by meditation, well, can it be repeated? You cannot control that. That's not exactly repeatable. So that's why much of what we call, what we consider as central tenets of spirituality, they are not repeatable for science to investigate. So the thing is, this functional aspect that is to a large extent repeatable. Say like, one person does meditation. Now we don't know what mystical experience they have. Two people may do meditation, they may have two different set of mystical experiences. But can both of them have similar neurological effects of their experience? Does their brain circuitry become calmer? And they have this phenomenon called crosstalk. Crosstalk means that whenever any brain signal goes through, there are the brain cells, the synapses occur at the end of the dendrites. So normally, if the synapses occur in a desirable way, where they should be occurring, then the attention is more, and then the comprehension is more. But if unwanted synapses start occurring, so right now we are talking and say I am moving the fingers over here. And if seeing these fingers moving, you remember some movie star who moved the fingers like that. And then you start remembering that movie. So that's what like an unwanted connection that's happening. So distraction results because of the synapses firing arbitrarily or in an unwanted way. So this functional aspect of spirituality, that can science measure the effects of spiritual practice? And there's a lot of success in this area. There are many surveys that have done. Just like people go to prayer meetings, whether it's in the church or a mosque or a temple. They go regularly for some prayer meeting. It seems that somebody has a heart attack, the chances of recurrence of the heart attack go down. There's a Oxford Handbook of Religion and Health. There are about 3,000 meta-studies, 3,000 studies they have compiled together. And they say there is no medicine. There's a Sigmund Freud had idea that religion is the opium of the masses. So there's the study concludes religion is the opium, then this is an opium that is very healthy, at least at the physical level. So the functional aspect can be studied. And scientists may try to come up with a reductionist explanation. That this again, science and scientism come together. So what they are trying to do now, they have there is a big research in Harvard or Stanford has got a multi-billion-dollar grant to create a meditation helmet or a meditation cap. What they say is that when they have observed people who do meditation and they have found that their brain states are in a particular way, that certain areas of the brain are more active, certain areas of the brain are less active. So they say, can we create a cap? You wear that cap or helmet, and that will electronically or electrochemically stimulate the brain in such a way that your brain state will become similar to a meditative state. So this is a shortcut to meditation. Now, whether it is a shortcut or simply a cut. So this is the problem with reductionism, that we may be able to see the neurochemical effects of meditation, and that can give faith that meditation really makes a difference. But if we reduce meditation to neurochemical effects only, and there's nothing more to that, then that will not work. So the ontological aspect, that is quite difficult. To try to scientifically build up a case for reincarnation or for past life memories, for near-death experiences. It can be done, but it takes a lot of effort. The sheer number of studies. See, we at a general level, like I have written a book on reincarnation also, and I have got out 25 cases, and they're quite persuasive. But what happens is, if you really want to do a rigorous scientific study, there has to be a large sample. There have to be control cases. Now, how do you do a control case for a past life memory? Can you have two people exactly in the same condition, and one is remembering the past life, the other is not? It's difficult. So at an anecdotal level, you can call it scientific research, but you cannot really call it rigorous scientific research. So at an ontological level, maybe it is possible to a large amount of funding. Say near-death experiences have received far more funding than the reincarnation studies, because near-death experiences confirm the Christian worldview. Past life memories, they don't. Because Christianity has the idea there's another world, there is heaven, there is Jesus, but they don't accept another lifetime. So Christians will never fund reincarnation research. So who are going to fund it? Either Hindus don't do anything like that, generally speaking. Hindus will fund building of big temples. So then there are Western people who have adopted the Hindu worldview, and if some of them are philanthropic, some of them are wealthy, they give endowments for reincarnation research. So the reincarnation research funding is like less than 1% of the near-death experience research. And that's why near-death experience research is much more. But what happens, if we focus on meditation research, then that is something which is tangibly beneficial for everyone. So there is a lot of funding available for that also. So as long as we are clear about what implications we are trying to draw from it. So, like the one offense to the holy name is to give a mundane interpretation. So one devotee, senior devotee, was doing a research in this field. He was the first person to do research in mantra meditation, and he showed, we quote that David Bray and Brian Wolf, his research, that how they studied and they found that depression and other things decreased for people who practice meditation. It was only one research, it was one unpublished research, or one unpublished thesis. So it's not very credible. But so when I asked him, I met him in Florida, I said, isn't this like a mundane interpretation of the holy name? To say that chanting, we can see the behavioral effect and the neural. He didn't know so much in neurology, but he said, his understanding, and I tend to agree with him, is that if we are saying this is all that there is to meditation, it is to give a mundane interpretation means to reduce the spiritual to the material. Like the deities. Are the deities material? Well, the deities are definitely made of material circuit. But we not reduce. It's one thing to say the deities are made of some matter, but that doesn't mean everything that the deity is material. Like a currency note. Is it made of paper? Of course it is made of paper. But is it paper? No, it is so much more than paper. So, like that, the functional aspect of meditation or functional effects of spirituality, they are a potential for a huge amount of promising research. So, neuroscience coupled with the functional effects of spirituality, not just neuroscience, other physiological parameters. So that can definitely be used to enhance the faith. But what I found, just to conclude this answer quickly, is that times are changing. And many people don't really worry so much about science nowadays. Because what has happened is that while people do want technology, and technology has, people want latest gadgets, but the idea that science will help us understand what is right or what is true or what is good, there's a lot of skepticism about that nowadays. That if you consider there are three phases in history, there's pre-modern, is modern, and now mostly it is post-modern. So, in pre-modern times, scripture was the source of authority. Whether in India it was the Vedas, in Europe it was the Bible, in the Middle East it was the Quran. Scripture is the source of authority. In modern times, science is the source of authority. Now in post-modern times, it is largely experience. If something works for me, I will do it. So like yoga, there has been some study pointing out to the benefits of yoga. But there's been no exhaustive research of the benefits of yoga. But millions of people are practicing it. Because experiential level, it works for them. So that way, experience is what matters most for many people in today's world. Whether something is scientific or not, whether there are many people who try meditation. I haven't found, like I share some study about this research paper says that meditation is good for you, therefore practice meditation. That really doesn't convince many people. They're like, hey, okay, let me try it out. You meet people who say that meditation help them, you try it out, if it helps, people continue it. So, to summarize, that scientific study towards spirituality can be with functional and ontological levels. See, the functional level is much easier and that's much more relevant for people today. Okay? So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad-gītā ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki.